Digital World Town Hall meeting. We're grateful for those that are logged on and in attendance live. We're also grateful for those that are providing support. It's going to be a special meeting primarily because what we've been talking about for a very long time, we can actually start reviewing together and actually help you to see that the development is completed, at least into the final testing phases. And I'll tell you more about what that is here in a second. But first, thank you for those that are always unwavering and consistent, that help with moderating and supporting these meetings, as well as not just these meetings, but also throughout the week, and just for being who they are. I'd like to excuse Wally. He's actually preparing for a wedding. And then also Terrence, grateful for all he does. But Al, you're covering the show today, so thank you very much for being here. As a reminder, this is a private membership association. At least some of the content that we'll discuss as it relates to the digital world is definitely it does have looking forward statements. There's a lot of vision in it, but there's a lot of reality too. Some of the realities follow on these different types of apps, and we've actually, some of the great advancements that we'll be discussing is parts and pieces of this, not just working on a Clear phone or a Freedom phone or an Armor phone, but also on Android and any Google device basically that's out there that has biometrics. But also today, this is actually the first iPhone that I've ever bought. And those are the 3 first transactions that have ever happened for those that can actually see it. And this is actually Hawaiian Life. It also would run Digital Life or Clear Life or Tuvalu Life or Vanuatu Life or Saudi Life or Samoa Life, Aotearoa Life, any of these different apps based upon the currency within the country. And it's actually on Apple. That's the big deal. That's a big deal. So a lot of people may not realize how big a deal it is, but for us, it's a long time coming, and we look forward to letting folks that actually want to start beta testing it out. If you do want to test it, just send a message in, and we can get you an invite out. But that's really the biggest news. So for those of you that have not logged on, you can do so in 2 different ways. You can go to rippleeffect.clear.events or townhall.clear.events and ask questions that are live. So you guys all know me. I can blab a lot, but this is it's a special event. Let's see if I can grab just some photos that may show you. I think they're all sideways right now.
Why can't I see you, Michael?
What's that?
Why can't I see you? What happens?
I don't know. Maybe it's a setting.
Yeah, I could see you perfectly, and now I can't see you.
You can't. Well, usually.
That's why I usually log out and log back in, and then you come back.
I don't know. I'm trying to find an application here. Here we go.
Danielle, I can see Michael fine. So you might need to log out and log back in.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to have to do. Okay.
I'm actually going to just drop this in real time. So we'll kind of have to just go through these together. But let's see here. So this is one of the first ones. So this was actually literally just taken 20 minutes ago. So you're seeing this firsthand. This is actually like so there's a couple things that have happened here. 1, the app's completed. 2, it's accepted by Apple, at least so far. And then 3, there's the cross-poll. So if you have your 12 words, let me back up and kind of, for those that may not even understand what this is, let's show you within the Hawaiian area. So let's go to services, and then we're going to go to Hawaiian Life. Okay. So Hawaiian Life basically allows somebody to get 12 words, and then, there's nothing here. Let's go to Digital World and see if we can find it there. So again, these are just, this will spell it all out. So you basically can get 12 words or a QR code, and that connects with your fingerprint that then gives you encrypted keys that are derived for basically everything that you do as you use technology. So it gives you your own identity back, and then you can validate who you are along the way. But you can do it based upon certain things. So in other words, it can, it can snag your contacts, or it can back up your contacts, your photos, really any of the different apps. I'll pull open what those different apps are. For those that can see a screen, I know that some of you can see more, but all of these apps are all decentralized apps. Okay, so this is a ClearPhone that comes pre-installed with an operating system called ClearOS Mobile that ties to the decentralized storage architecture. For those that are not aware, that looks something like this. So you have a phone that connects to decentralized storage, okay? And what that allows you to do is have encryption keys on the phone, like what we just showed you here, that then give you the ability to tie your finger and then have data that ties to that. So all the data from all these apps, calendar events, contacts, photos, all of it. And there's much more, all your passwords, everything basically synchronize to a keyword or a derived word from these 12 words. So for those that this may be new, when you get a decentralized phone, so now it doesn't have to be just a ClearPhone or an Armor phone or a Freedom phone, but when you get an Android phone or an Apple phone and you download Digital Life or Hawaiian Life or Tuvalu Life, you can basically, and there's other life, based upon every currency out there in the world, there'll be a new app because it has the base currency based upon that. And then some other unique cards. So for instance, within this ecosystem, one of the things, for those of you that can see the screen, I don't know if you can see it there, but it says that the Hawaiian Life card's coming soon. So that is a card that could touch the Visa rails or replace the Visa rails. So it's basically the way to do a financial transaction, but with or without the financial system. So it's not just contacts or calendar or photos or texts or other things, but it's your settings, it's your apps, as well as your data, as well as your financial transactions and things that go along with that. So, and what I'm talking about with the different cards is each country can actually have its own card that ties to it in its own currency. So big deal, really, really big deal. And I think that I could swear that we were spelling it out better over here. I thought, let me see, I think it's under reputation. So when you actually use this technology, you get the ability, I'm going to try and zoom in here. This is not a perfect example, but imagine if you can actually validate who you are and where you're going and what you're doing and how you're doing it without divulging any of your private data. But you're actually proving that you're a human and you're building a reputation score. So this particular interface here talks about how the Hawaiian Kingdom can offer its members reputation as an individual, as well as a company if you create a company within this ecosystem. And there's other ecosystems, but this is just one that we're actively cranking hard on. But you also can have digital assets that tie to it as well. So imagine that as you're using this Life app, you're also building a reputation. What's unique is you can actually have multiple Life apps installed at the same time. So you can actually have, and when I say Life, on Apple, it actually combines the wallet and the keys all in one system, which is in some ways actually simpler and better than what we're doing within any of the Android or ClearOS mobile marketplaces or apps. For the Android-based systems, it actually breaks it into two different apps. Sorry, I'll turn that off. So you've got two different apps, one that's ClearPay and one that is Clear Life. So there's two separate apps on Android, but there's one app on the Apple platform. Now, what makes it interesting is you can actually run different Life or different wallets on this type of device. So if you have Life and wallet combined like you do on Apple, that's all you can run, so to speak. But if you have an Android-based system, you can actually install multiple different wallets. So you can have, let's say, a wallet for America and a wallet for Hawaii, or I'll say this in a different way that may not confuse folks. You can have a wallet for Samoa and Fiji and Tonga, They're three different countries with three different currencies, but they have their own respective value and ability to exchange with one another. So you can actually have currencies within Fiji and then currencies within Samoa that can actually have different values that tie to them. Now, when we talk about Samoa, that's not one that's actually deployed yet, but from what I understand and believe and know in my heart, it'll be a very easy environment to roll out. The people's hearts are already there. They're already sovereign. And I believe that they can make decisions pretty rapidly, primarily because of the governance process and namely the woman that's actually running that amazing country. So there's a whole nother conversation that'll come in the future, but it's here and it's on Apple and it actually works. And it works fast and it works clean and it's simple. I think I'm going to have to grab another computer when I do these things so that I can stream with different cameras and whatever else. I got to figure out a different angle because there's really some cool stuff that I want to show you. But I used to actually log on to the screen share and I would share the mobile devices, but it does not cross platforms. So I'll just do one real fast with you. So we have Aloha Dollar here and actually I'll turn the screen share off for those that are struggling with it, or let's go ahead and turn this off. So some of you will continue to see, but actually here, I'll go ahead and turn off. Okay, so here we've got again Apple. I'll pull this off here so you can see it as well. By the way, notice the difference. This is the biggest Apple phone in the world, and this is the Clearphone 620. So you kind of see the difference as far as phone sizes go there. But that's not the illustration that I'm trying to point out. So, by the way, if you want to join the test, there's a pilot system that you can grab, and that's actually how the update stuff works. So, and I don't want to do an update. No, I just want to open it. Let's see if I can just open it. Okay, so I've got the app here open with Apple. Then I've got the app here, and I'll just open it with ClearPay, okay? So again, it uses decentralized keys to basically pull it open. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scroll down. So this is actually ClearPay, so it's gonna have other base assets as my core, but I'm gonna come down here to this Aloha Dollar. We're just gonna use this as an example. So we've got Aloha Dollar here and here. Here we're gonna say receive. So we're gonna say receive. Now that's just the first interface. Over here we'll say send, okay? So here we'll just say there's going to be 100 and let's see. So the time right now is 3:13. So we'll just do 3:13. And if you've got in your contacts, notice how it has a contacts button. If you have in your contacts someone that's already has a key, then you can just add it. Otherwise, it's basically going to ask for a QR code, which then you'll scan. And notice the value here is 450. And the value here is let's say 512, okay? So it's 8,512. I put my finger on the back. So notice the 450. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that transfer just consummated on this phone. I'm going to come back and you can see that it actually is here as well. So that's literally, so now we've got, I don't know if you can see that, but we've got 761 that's now on this phone. That's real-time full settlement. So we can dig into it and we can look at the transactions. So you can see that transaction actually occurred, full settlement, and then you can dig into all the details that the world sees, and that's this. So you can see very transparent, very open, real world, and we're cross-platform. So we're Apple to Android. And again, what's unique is you can actually have multiple wallets with different base currencies, and then they also can have multiple logins. So you can actually operate in different jurisdictions, but with the same keys. What makes that valuable is some people, for instance, I've been in almost 20 countries this year, and I've got a pocket full of different currencies that are there. And sometimes you just have to wonder, is the exchange rate correct? Is it accurate? Now, when you want to actually spend, can you do so within a currency? And so sometimes it comes down to you basically, and I won't be specific with this, but you basically just say, I'm going to have all my currencies wrapped to one off ramp, like a card that will then be able to make a payment. So I don't know if you really understood what.
Michael, sorry to interrupt you. I can't see the PowerPoint. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I went through and started sharing here. I'll turn it back on. I started just showing a visual of the phones of the actual transaction. So I don't know if you were able to see
I didn't
that.
see any of that, but that's okay. I was following the presentation.
Yeah, so I just so basically the net is I just showed a screen which had this, and I don't know if you're seeing a screen share now, but it's a presentation.
No, there's no-
I can even, let's see if I can drop. Yeah, so that's basically a good way to look at it. So if you're actually seeing my screen share here, this is just the interface that's there. So in this particular jurisdiction, this is Hawaiian Life. It does not have an on-ramp or off-ramp with a card like what I'm showing you on a video feed. Let's see, I got to turn that back on too. So
I could see that. Yep.
okay. So this is a very huge advancement, primarily because historically there's been a lot of barriers to adoption. And I'll go through, we talked about a little of this last week. I'm going to try and pull up a slide here real fast. It'll do just a straight comparison. Let's see if, boy, it's way down here. So it's right here. So basically, if we look at market adoption, worldwide, there's over 1 billion iPhones versus 3.75 billion Android devices. Now, this data is old, a couple years, but you can see that there's definitely a massive difference in volume. But I would argue that most of the people on this call either at one time had, well, or at least a good percentage of people are using Apple phones that are very affluent, and money is not really a topic or a massive concern. But it still only represents 23% of the worldwide adoption. I think it may have to be up to 25%, but it's not a massive percentage. But where we've got the Clear technology, whether it's Clear OS or a Freedom phone or an Armor phone, et cetera, or any version of the Clear phone, these decentralized phones are still very limited in market adoption. So the goal is to enable within the Android ecosystem and Apple ecosystem the ability to actually interface and turn these phones into having the decentralized technologies that are built into it. Now, they're not going to have some of the spying or privacy or profiling advantages that come with a Clear phone. They just, neither one of these do. Apple is probably more limiting, even though they do a very good job of marketing how they care about privacy and data collection, but they profile in a massive way, which is a whole nother conversation. But that's not what this conversation is about. What this conversation is about is basically market adoption within, an ecosystem where people can actually use the phone that they currently have without having to rip it out of their hands, and they have the ability to still keep with the convenience that they historically have been used to, but they can start operating within the digital ecosystem. It's not that they can do financial transactions. That's not the core of it, but they can start building up their own identity that then gives them the freedom to be able to be sovereign and independent. They can also have a voice that can be heard with some of the voting capabilities. I'll give you an example. Within the Hawaiian Kingdom, the services are, dispute resolution, land management, which is still coming, marriage, which is deployed, reputation, which is initially deployed but has some advancements to happen on, organizations, so the ability to actually create companies and organizations, payments. You know what I should do is I'll just come over and show you. I'll actually show you the system. So these are some of the apps. So this on Apple is one app combined. Birth certificates, basically building that out so that an individual can actually have its own certificate of life instead of being profiled into a system at birth. Marriage certificate, same type of thing, where individuals can come online and cryptographically be married, which, by the way, I don't know if you're familiar with, but same type of thing in Utah County, which is where my roots are from. We're now up over 37,000 digital cryptographic online marriages. And the last number that we looked at was 6.2 million in net profit, bottom line for the county in profit. That's one county basically paying for itself and operating primarily because people want to make a commitment to one another, and they go online and they consummate a cryptographic marriage. And in other parts of the world where this may not be looked at in a positive way, for instance, Israel didn't like the way marriages were being conducted, where a man and a man or a woman and a woman could be bonded, at least through this process. They took it to court, and in their own land, it actually stood up. So for those that weren't aware, this is something that happened this year. Some of the other things that happened were people are still not able to get married in other parts of the world, for instance, in Ontario. And without a marriage certificate, you can't get married legally within that environment, and you can't get a marriage certificate if you don't get vaccinated. So people can actually go online in Ontario and get a certificate and then go ahead and get married. So it's a very, and there's a union side of it and a marriage side of it. They're two different conversations, but they still tie to the same type of thing. But very important work, as well as around death certificate. That's something that's tied to it. Driver's licenses. So this primarily today only works for people that already have driver's licenses, but they want one that's actually going to tie to a license plate that's actually going to be a digital type format. So now what I'll do is I can jump over into this ecosystem and show you there's a lot more services that the digital world offers, such as some of these, whereas some of the countries that are adopting it, such as like Tuvalu, let's see here, right here, they have a select few. I would say even a couple less. So they've got voting, land management, dispute resolution, marriage, reputation, assets, and organizations and wallets. So they're a little bit more limited, but you can see how different countries can actually select which types of services that they want to roll out. And think about it as kind of an operating system that the digital world offers to other ecosystems based upon them governing themselves or their citizens or their nationals or generally the people within their jurisdiction. So we see the lines of jurisdiction blurring in a massive way, and this advancement within this app for the ability to cross between, a Clear phone or an Apple phone or a Google phone is absolutely massive. So questions, thoughts, feedback, comments? No, go ahead and stop blabbing now.
Michael, it's Beck from Australia. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's big. It's huge news.
I mean, that's huge. Like, that's huge. I hope people understand what's happening right now.
Yeah, it's been many years that particular app, primarily because you had to build it within an ecosystem that you could actually control the security from the ground up and then adapt it into these other centralized systems. And that's why Apple was always going to be last, but it's finally done. So it really takes the limiters off, whereas before we had to put the brakes on, but now we can start literally taking them off and letting it go. So thanks for recognizing that.
That's awesome. Like, I tell people how great it is. And I think probably maybe it's the industries that I work in. Some people see, some people don't. The innovation behind it and how much this is going to help people is incredible if they can see that. So I just want to say thank you very much. I appreciate all your work in the team and what you guys have done. And watching this all roll out has been amazing. And I can't wait for the next 7 or 8 months to see how this rolls out even more. But I do have a question about the Hawaii Life app and the card. So you said that the card that the Hawaii Pay system has, is that particularly related to Hawaii? And
It-
what's the difference between that one and the ClearPay one that we would get our influencers to get?
So there's, by the way, thanks for recognizing this advancement. And it really is a massive one. There's been a lot of the work that's gone into this actually hasn't been me personally. I've just kind of been on the sidelines as a cheerleader, you know, throwing food and finances and other things their way. But the developers behind this are just brilliant folks that are relentless, and they care and they see it, and just grateful to be able to work with such quality people. But the actual financial transaction within each country is going to be based upon a small bank within their country. And so currently we're targeting 3 different banking institutions for on-ramp and off-ramp. And then there'll be the ability, let's see if I can find a different slide. There's one slide that'll really turn on a lot of lights. This one. So the ability for a consumer to actually have a quick transaction like we just did, and then make a payment, and then have, you know, different organizations that can actually get paid, as well as have it returned and clawed back with certain return policies. But imagine a transaction like we just saw, where there's no government, no banking system, everything's audited, not just single ledger or double ledger, but you got triple ledger accounting. So all of the transaction details are all built into it. And so literally systems can actually do the auditing, and forensic can see things that are inappropriate or wrong, but there's no cost to it. So it's real time, no banks, no government. And it's like 1,000th of a cent per transaction to run this. So it's next to nothing compared to the systems that are currently out there. So for instance, if we likened it to Bitcoin or Ethereum or Visa, you know, let's say that every day there was 14 billion in assets that transferred, you know, lots of transactions, but it's over a 24-hour period, and you had a cost and then you had a time to transfer. Well, this cost and time to transfer is actually a really big deal. And you'll see a fluctuation between, you know, Bitcoin at 2,300, Ethereum at 26 million, and then Visa at 2.4%, which totals about 336 million. That's every day as far as transactional fees. Now that does break down to different banking institutions, et cetera, but imagine that basically goes to less than $1. So we're talking about 1,000th of a cent for each transaction. So we're talking a lot of volume, and it settles in real time, which we know Visa doesn't actually settle in real time. Visa literally settles and funds, you know, a day or two later. So the ability to have this working across platform and to have different jurisdictions that actually issue their own payment. So for instance, some countries may say, you know, we don't want to actually be involved in that, even involved in the percentage of transactions. Some can say, you know what, we're going to have a tax within sales tax within a state or a federal or a province. Some would say we don't want to have sales tax. Some would say we're just going to have property tax. Some would say we're going to have income tax and no sales tax, or vice versa. There's going to be no income tax and then higher sales tax. So they're basically doing it. But in this ecosystem, the real big light, and I hope that you get this aha, is you can actually run a governing body in a scalable process that actually pays for itself, that's less than the current systems that are out there. So you replace the wire system, the SWIFT system, the HCA system, the Zelle system, or the other digital money systems like Venmo or PayPal or even Cash App. And then you can literally have a system that can actually pay for itself within a jurisdiction. And if the jurisdiction sees it and understands it, they could actually also share that with the members or citizens or nationals or residents within their borders and the merchants within their borders, and actually provide a better system to transact that has full accounting. Imagine not having to pay income tax because a government is actually accountable and transparent enough to be able to know what it takes to run the government, provide the services. Maybe it's identity, maybe it's roads, maybe it's education, maybe it's health, but they're actually providing it with a quantifiable cost and people know where all the funds go to because of a triple ledger based accounting system such as this. And then they don't have to tax the people. They can actually be accountable for the services that they're delivering, the quality of services that they're delivering. And, you know, it's really a disruptive system when you start linking digital technologies that's really and decentralized technologies that's built on what we call living the law of consecration within software development, where it's open source, no one owns it, no one controls it, but everyone can benefit from it. And even when we pass on, when we take our last breath, we're done with these bodies, the next generation can actually pick it up and continue to build. And so when we look at what's happening with the special stuff within the Hawaiian kingdom, this 126 years that their kingdom has been stolen, oppressed, taken, and it's been recognized by many, and the right things are actually happening where it's being recognized in the right ways, which is a whole nother conversation. If you want to join that, you know, there'll be let me see what time it is. So in about 30 minutes, there'll be another general council meeting for that. But imagine different jurisdictions, so not just in the Pacific, but worldwide, being able to have systems that can roll out with such a system that, you know, and here's an example of a system that where you have a Visa, but imagine if you look at this one, there is no Visa network. Like literally, you can get financial transactions to be done, but you don't even need to ride on the Visa network rails. And I don't know if you saw inside of the system, but you can use the Visa network as well as the non-Visa network. So you can pay none of those fees, or you can actually pay fees that go to actually driving awareness around adoption. So people telling people, and merchants telling merchants, and merchants using it, and governments adopting it, and everybody basically wins with this type of a technology in this type of a model. So hopefully that's understood by different jurisdictions. And, you know, it's neat to kind of see what Ecuador is doing, or El Salvador is doing with rolling out Bitcoin, and then finally figuring out, you know, Bitcoin is actually too slow. So when you look at the average transaction time, it's over 10 minutes for full settlement. And so they layer on it a network where you say, hey, this is my public key, the Bitcoin key. And then I've also got my name and my phone number and maybe one other identifier like a date of birth. And what they've done is they've centralized decentralization. So they didn't, you know, they're thinking that, you know, and even this last week, Jamie Dimon said, you know, you got to get rid of Bitcoin. It's just used for these nefarious things and terrible. And in all reality, it's just their biggest competitor, because people are going to it as a store of value around savings, because the math has been proven. The cryptography behind it has been proven. And it's a litmus test that proves that, you know, Bitcoin is a good savings asset. Now, and then you'll see other people that'll say, you know, people are moving in and out of it, or it's fluctuating. But the point is it's Bitcoin is a litmus test that the cryptography and math actually works. What we're showing you and what we just showed you is a system that you don't have to give away the privacy. You can still have real-time transactions, and you can still be able to be private, which if you want to run a country like what Ecuador and many other countries, Venezuela and others, you just can't do it in real time with Bitcoin, because it takes too long to fully settle. And the Lightning Network is owned by Visa and by the banks, whether you dig into it or not. They basically do the same. The Lightning Network does the same thing that Visa does, where it basically says, okay, this person, this entity will run in the middle and will consummate the transaction. And so they're just playing the middleman and basically making money along the way. So I'll stop blabbing with that, but hopefully I answered your question around the card and the banks in different countries. So it's each one of them will have their own. Does that make sense and answer your question?
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Mhm.
I can ask one last question. So say if I was to go to Hawaii and I had my purple Claire Rewards Visa card, can I, and say inside of my Claire Pay app, I had Hawaii dollars or something, can I still use that card in Hawaii with those Hawaii dollars?
So I personally actually use the same card.
Okay.
Here, I pay for life with it, so to speak. But that is based upon US dollars that are in a US bank account, and then I'm spending it within a jurisdiction that is today looked at as a US domiciled ecosystem, even though they know it's not. But let's say the other 18 countries that I've been in, Vanuatu, Tuvalu, Fiji, same thing. I use the same card in all these different countries with all these different currencies, and it just transfers and it does the exchange at the same time. You can even go to ATMs and pull them out that way. But the value is, and I think the core of your question is, well, okay, I know I can use Visa almost anywhere Visa is accepted, but does that actually mean that the currency within the country can be interfaced? And that is actually an area where a user has to make a cognizant decision to say, I'm moving from the digital realm into the fiat or Visa realm. And when you do it, in some cases, you're creating a taxable event because now you're operating off of the US dollars versus off the other currency. And so there's an exchange, usually a degradation in exchange fees. Then there's a transfer of, a value within that ecosystem as well. And then you've got usually, sometimes they'll actually charge you per transaction to come in and out. But when you're actually using a digital asset, they're in the ideal world that I see, the money changers are not the ones that are making the money. If you remember, there's certain people that got upset, very upset with money changers, and there's a reason why. And where there's mystery, there's margin. But imagine, and this is where all of those that are following the same ecosystem that love Ripple, they look at Ripple and CBDCs in countries that are adopting this standard. Yeah, it's not that big a deal. It's not that complicated. So imagine every 150 countries that has 50 grand in assets, let's use it as like US dollars, you just times 150 times 50, and that's basically a full liquidity pool within the world for a nominal amount of money. And so we're talking about, using intelligent technologies that can transfer value in real time and then not charging an arm and a leg to be able to do it. You still have to have buyers and sellers of it, which is where the IMF comes in and World Bank and all these other ecosystems that kind of regulate. Really, I would say it's the access to be able to do the transactions, and then it manipulates, because of that, the value exchange. And that's where I think a lot of countries are falling down, is the exchange rate between the dollars, because they don't understand banking and they don't understand money creation. And so they're basically stuck with the system that has been created by design, and that's the US dollar. And when you really look in behind the IMF and you look in behind the World Bank, you'll find the Federal Reserve, which is a separate entity in the United States that's actually, there's a reason why it hasn't been fully audited and the transparency and honesty is not there. There's a reason why fractional banking lending, which is the last time the markets really crashed, which 2007-ish, 2008-ish, it was based on people putting money into a bank. So if let's say, and I watched even a topic on it today, somebody talked about, you put $1 in and you can loan 90 cents out. Well, it's even worse than that. But neither here nor there, the ability for digital and physical or fiat systems or Visa systems to be able to operate on one app across any device. When I say any, I'm talking about Apple, Android / Google, and Clear. It now exists, and the user has the ability to say, I want to keep in the fiat system or I want to move off of that system. And then it just comes down to countries saying, hey, we see the benefit in this and we actually want to deploy it. So we've seen 5 countries that have adopted Bitcoin as a standard, and some of them they're doing different variations of it, but it's a portion of it is because they just don't have true transparency and honesty within their local currency because of what prior administrations or presidencies or monarchies, or depending on what kind of country it is, have actually done to manage their country. So I think it's really going to be a beautiful thing as the Hawaiian Kingdom stands up and gets the ability to literally have an honest, transparent monetary system where a treasury can actually truly identify what kind of assets are out there, who creates them, when was it created, who authorized it, and all of the people can actually see it and be a part of choosing. Like, there's no reason why people's voices should not be heard these days. Technology can enable that. Cryptography can enable it so that it doesn't happen, inappropriately, and that logs can be modified and perverted like what the Dominion voting system does. So that's a long answer to a very simple question. I don't know if everybody really understood it, but I hope I got you an answer. Did it make sense to you?
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Mhm.
Well, that was, yes, that, yeah, more than enough. Thank you very much.
Awesome. But it is, and maybe what I do is I run back over to this. So you can kind of see here. Let's see if it shows on that right one. You can see how you've got a digital asset that will then tie to a physical asset. And here it doesn't currently have that side of it. Maybe we can even look. I think some of these interfaces may already have, that one's stripped out. So right here, you can kind of see, and again, there's other jurisdictions that already have this, like the Clear ecosystems already have all of this stuff. But when you tie it to a country with its own fiscal and monetary policy, especially a country like the Hawaiian Archipelago and Islands, I believe that not only is it going to enable a transparent system, but it's going to enable a country that actually, and a kingdom that actually understands it and deserves it. This last week, I actually spent some time going through the archives of the country and, the historical parts and pieces back to the 16, 17, 1800s. And I was just blown away at the maturity that they had. If we scroll up here, there's actually a wonderful gal that I really have come to respect and love. Lanakia, this is actually in the archives. And once you grab an index file, then you come in and you can actually see certain things, or whether it's around land or conveyance or details. But they actually already had all of these records in these environments done. Was it perfect? I'm sure it had its own issues, but the quality of materials and books and bindings and it's still solid today and stable and functional. They've digitized it and they're doing different things, but I was absolutely blown away when I learned how smart Hawaiians are. I grew up in LA, which is right next to Mexico, and I continually saw how people would belittle different races. And there's a lot of people that would come in. It wasn't just Mexicans. It would, Filipinos would come in, and Koreans and Chinese, all these. It was a melting pot in LA, 5 million people in one county. And I would watch how Caucasians would just talk down, even though we were like, in my high school, we were like 7% of the high school. And it was just difficult to see the class distinction in people that thought they were better than others because they thought they were smarter. And it's been very eye-opening to see just how brilliant the Hawaiian / Polynesian culture is, as well as, Micronesian. When I went and met with some of their reserve banks and things, they said, we're not just stupid people down here sitting under a coconut tree. That's actually their words. And I really have learned to respect and honor Polynesian and Micronesian cultures because of, one, I think the simplicity, but it's been interesting to see how other cultures will actually come in and just strip their identity from them and make them feel stupid and make them feel inadequate and less. And then you target the family and tear it apart, make life so expensive then they can't pay bills, or you've got multiple different people that have to work to make ends meet. But in all reality, it's all because the cost of living just continues to grow up, because this fiscal policy mess. It's all one big topic. It really is. He who creates the money creates the rules. And it's really easy to make life financially difficult where people, earlier today I got a message from an amazing man. And actually, I wept for a long time. Just because I looked into his eyes and it really just hit me. I won't even tell you what he said or who he is, but all I'm trying to say is these are amazing people that just want to have a solid family and a solid life. And I believe their day has come. And I believe that technology is one of the things that will actually set it apart so that they can actually have. It's not about them. It's about their ability to give away. I won't say glory because it's the wrong word, but to give away all of it to our Creator and to identify why we're here and the importance of us just being kind to one another. I listened to a song earlier this morning and I put it on repeat, and it was just about love. Love is really the way. And what I've learned here in the Hawaiian Islands in particular is aloha means something. And the whole world can benefit from understanding what it is to love one another and to love thy neighbor and to treat others as you would want to be treated. There's actually, as I was going through these archives, there were 6 laws. They got rid of one. There are actually 5 laws that the kingdom had standardized on. And I hope to focus more on these over time, but I'm still learning from some of the historians. But it's been interesting just to understand how these laws just talk about aloha and just love and the simplicity of it. So I look forward to being a part of them rolling out these different ecosystems and then watching others in the Pacific that can basically do the same thing. And then watching countries that are not even in the Pacific, but around the world that aren't in the game. I can only imagine what's going on within the Middle East, with Ukraine, with Russia, with Israel. For those of you that don't know, I've got Jewish roots on my mother's side, and so it's an interesting. I have a lot of friends that are there, but I don't have bloodlines that I know of that are there. But these are good people. All of these different cultures are good people, and to see the warring and the death and the pain and anguish that comes from it, knowing that we don't need to do this to one another, and also knowing what we're going to do to one another. I don't know if you saw what was going on yesterday. I'll pull up a couple different news articles here. Let's see if I've got one. Genealogy stuff. No, it looks like I got rid of all of them. Basically, there's a lot of different cyber attacks that's been going on over the last 48 hours. So, one of the things that were targeted was actually some of the utilities here in Hawaii, as well as some other power grids and such. But this stuff, this stuff has been going on for a very long time. Can you take over a country in a very different way than they did before? Yeah. When we think about a civil war, one part of a field and another part of a field, you have armies that just face each other, whether they're with cannons or on horses or with guns or swords, whatever the weapon was of the choice of that dispensation. And then they would just run at each other or shoot at each other. The wars that are going to be fought are very different war, and digital ecosystems and approaches have a very large role to play. For those of you that are not aware, my primary history within technology has been in high-end security within networks and storage layers. And I promise you that even though we believe that the internet was created to create stability for humanity around nuclear war, I don't know if people know that, but the National Science Foundation actually funded the research behind the internet primarily off of militarization technologies that were out there that was all around. How do you keep communication systems up when there's a nuclear war? And what we've done is with decentralized technology, we've taken that to another level where it's not just communications, it's actually data. So we take a photo, it breaks it into thousands of pieces. That data gets stored in thousands of locations. You can take some of those servers down consistently, at the same time. But as long as a third of those are not, or more than a third is not taken down, you'll still be able to get your data back in real time. So I'll stop blabbing, but I do believe that the time that we have the opportunity to live in is just beautiful. And it's neat to be a part of the solution, even though you may say it's, done a lot, but there's a lot of people that really care about acting in the right way and doing something instead of just sitting back and, poking holes at what's happening within society, but actually getting involved. I know for those of you that have already started using some of this decentralized technology, initially it may have not been comfortable or it may have been out of your comfort zone, but thank you for sticking with it. And I don't know if, Al, if you could just remind Terrence that Daniela was looking to connect with him since he wasn't on. But I'm grateful for all of those that help others, whether it's through support or whether it's through just adopting it. So any other questions, thoughts before we wrap up today's town hall?
Michael, oops, I'm
Say again.
echoing. Am I echoing?
No, we can hear you good.
I'm just thinking, without, fully understanding everything, wouldn't a great way to have mass adoption be through the payment systems by going to merchants and then their customers? Wouldn't that be a faster way? Wouldn't that be a better way to get mass adoption?
Yep, you're spot on, and that's exactly the direction. So you have to have an ecosystem that actually understands it and is willing to do fiscal policy around it. So they're willing to actually use the transactions and then back it. So, and the normal banking systems, they don't want this to happen. Because
No.
they know that it's going to be inevitably the future. But I believe within certain jurisdictions, like it was really neat to see what was happening down in Fiji, because the Reserve Bank would actually say, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We can issue a digital dollar. And then how do we get it out there? Oh, with digital mortgages. Well, who does the mortgages? Well, this bank. Okay, well, let's go ahead and authorize that bank to do digital mortgages. And then if people want to actually pay a mortgage that's digital, how do they get digital money? Oh, well, let's let the employers actually pay people in digital assets, digital payments, and digital currency. And then next thing you know is people are actually getting real-time payments. Instead of doing it every 2 weeks, they're getting it every day. So they're actually going to work, getting paid, digital asset transfers, and you've got an economy that is totally auditable, transparent, but the people still get their privacy back. And so we all know the benefits and the value, but I think, Daniela, your point is so brilliant, and it's neat that you always just pay attention to it, because that's where we're going with it. So imagine, let's say that you have, right here, we have $336 million a day. Let's say there's 14 billion on average to transfer a day over a 24-hour period. And let's say it's done with Visa. That's 336 million at 2.4%. Okay. So let's say that instead of using that system that doesn't really transfer in real time, and you actually go to the merchant and say, hey, merchant, we'll actually cut your fees by a whole percent. And hey, Mr. Person that's going to tell merchant, we'll actually pay you in the percentage rules. They talk about basis points. So it's like 100 basis points equals 1%. So we'll pay you 0.5% or 50 basis points. And it's in perpetuity. So you think about people telling people about phones. Imagine the power of people telling people about payments, and then actually running a system that creates the governance and the rules and the laws that are conforming to a financial system that is actually the future of this. So this is actually one of the latter systems. So the Hawaiian Kingdom has their own set of issues in just standing up the kingdom, whereas other countries are actually willing to start adopting this. But I believe that the Hawaiian Kingdom has a competitive advantage over everyone else. And that is they get to start a system from scratch. They get to start policies based upon wisdom of the past and then building the financial ecosystem from today on scratch. And I think that's a big competitive advantage. So, the key is getting enough people to actually understand that and then get aligned behind it. But you're spot on. Go ahead.
Michael, I don't know if I think I might have forgot to say, but when I did my pitch, that pitch was actually on the banking chain for Australia. So that was like a third party. The chain's called Ligon, and that's the same chain that the banks use for third party banking bonds. So it's Ligon blockchain, if you want to have a look at them. But when I went to do my pitch, it was really to, for this digital space, to raise awareness for innovations, ensuring that integrity is met throughout the whole entire network. So, yeah, it was a good opportunity, and it was good. People have actually been slowly reaching out to me, so I just to get an understanding of the whole entire ecosystem. So I just have to be a little bit patient. But I forgot to say that it was the banking chain.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. And that was 6 months ago or something?
Yeah, and the last couple of days, actually, people from other different areas have been reaching out to me. And I'm due to do another, presentation in early next year. It's probably going to be a good time to get more people to understand this ecosystem a bit more.
Well, yeah, and you're actually operating within a system that is doing the opposite. They actually want to control people with these chains. So I would argue, is it truly a decentralized chain? Because blockchain is a core of the technology, but when you centralize blockchain, it actually enslaves people. So that's the difference.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, any other questions or thoughts before we sign off today?
Michael, I missed a lot of that presentation in Vision. Can we have access to the visual PowerPoint, or at least some part of it?
Yeah. So you can grab the recording. It'll be on LinkedIn or Twitter, or I should say X, or Facebook, or Clear One. So any of those channels, this whole thing is recorded, and you can go grab, and it'll actually have a video stream that's different than what the folks on this channel actually see. So
Lovely. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
it's there.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking great questions and for showing up every week. We appreciate all of your attendance. We'll see you next Tuesday. If you'd like to join the Hawaiian General Council, you're welcome to do so. It'll actually be on hawaiian.clear.events. So much love, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.